Shalom, shalom, bruchim habayim. Welcome everybody. The Kabbalah Café, Hayom Yom Shishi, בשעה 10 בבוקר כאן בירושלים. עד סוף השיר תביני אנגלית היטב.
זה באנגלית?
גם וגם. בעזרת השם. ואנחנו אומרים תודה רבה לידידנו שרון הורוביץ, שהוא תרם את הקבלה קפה היום לעילוי נשמת האמא שלו היקרה, חנה גיטל בת רבי יחיאל גרשון הלוי, שיהיה לה עליית הנשמה ובשורות טובות במשפחה ובכל עם ישראל, רק בשורות טובות ובשורות משמחות. Only happy occasions. Sharon Horowitz is contributing today's Kabbalah Café in memory of his dear mother. He couldn't come today because he went to the cemetery, and his mother's name is Chana Gittel Bat Yechiel Gershon Halevi. Should only be good news. תוך כדי שמביאים את הקפה ומאפה, אז אנחנו נתחיל בנושא מאוד מעניין. We're going to start with a very interesting subject. You know, very often, the companies try to sell you an object, and they say, this is the most unbelievable product. Just imagine in your mind how happy you'll be.
I'll take 2, Rab.
Okay, b'simcha rabba. You got more. You got 3. אז בעצם מה שיש לנו כאן, שיש היום בעידן שלנו כל מיני חברות שמנסים לשכנע אותנו לקנות כל מיני מוצרים ולהירשם. אם תירשם לתוכנית הזאת, אז תרד במשקל, וכו' וזה, ופה כל מיני דברים יפים. אבל האם זה עובד? Does it actually work? If when they promise us all kinds of these companies and the advertisements all over the place, אז לאדמו"ר הצמח צדק יש פתרון טוב. תחשוב טוב, יהיה טוב. Think good, it will be good. אומר הצמח צדק משפט מאוד ידוע. תחשוב טוב, יהיה טוב. Think good, it will be good. It sounds funny. מה זאת אומרת? אם יש מצב לא כל כך נעים וחושבים טוב, אז פתאום איזה קסם? איך זה קורה בדיוק? בגלל שחשבתי טוב זה יהיה טוב? Why do we say that if you think it will be good, where's the button? Where's that all of a sudden, just because if someone had a difficult issue and you made a decision, okay, now it's going to be good, boom, it's good. מה? כן, אני ממשיך את הנושא. אז איך זה, איפה הכפתור הזה? Where do we have this button, this knob, that you turn it and all of a sudden it changes the situation? So today we're going to learn about the power of thought. How powerful is our mind? כמה הכוח של המחשבה שלנו, ומה המחשבה שלנו יכולה לפעול. בפרשה שלנו מסופר על אנשי החיל שיצאו להילחם במדיין. הקדוש ברוך אמר למשה, צא להילחם במדיין, ואחר תיאסף על עמך. Hashem told Moshe, go and wage war with Midianites, after he won the war with Sichon, after he won the war with Og, with Emori, Bashan. He said, go wage a war. And so Am Yisrael, the soldiers went out, and they brought back lots of shalal. Ziru l'Moshe Rabbeinu, the Am Yisrael, harbe shalal. As השאלה היא, מה עושים עם כל הדברים? What do we do with all of the items that were taken from the Midianites and brought them back? What do we do? So it says in today's Chumash, Matot. Okay, as Moshe Rabbeinu ro'eh shekulam chozru, all of the soldiers of Am Yisrael came back. Then pitom motziim et kol ha'shalal. They take out all of the forgetting the word. All the spoils. All of the spoils. Review tell Moshe Rabbeinu, Kol HaZahav Amru Zeh Kapara B'Shvilenu. לא מזמן, עם בנות מואב, היה סיפור דומה. מיד אחרי הסיפור עם בלעם. מה קרה אז? הם חטאו, עם ישראל חטאו עם בנות מואב. ואז היו צריכים תשובה, כפרה. כשמשה רבינו רואה שעכשיו מביאים בחזרה את השואל ואמרו, אנחנו צריכים כפרה, אז הוא אומר להם, מה, חטאתם שוב? נהיה לו חושך בעיניים. אז הם אמרו, לא חטאנו. התאפקנו, היה קשה מאוד, התאפקנו, אבל המחשבה שלנו כן חשב על החטא. לפועל לא עשינו את החטא, אבל המחשבה שלנו חשבה על החטא, ולכן אנחנו צריכים כפרה. So Moshe Rabbeinu said, why are you bringing back the spoils and you're asking for an atonement? Did you also do the sin with the daughters of Midian like you did with the daughters of Moab? That's why you need to have an atonement? That's why you're asking for teshuvah? So they said, no. We didn't. We learned our lessons and we did not do any sin. However, we still need a kapara. We still need an atonement. For what? Because we thought of the sin. In other words, they saw the daughters. What did the kingdoms do in those times? They would let their daughters go out and they would try to incite the men to do sins with them. But they said, we learned, we did tshuva, we didn't do any sin. But naturally, we're human beings and we different thoughts came to our mind, bad thoughts came to our mind. Ken. So Moshe Rabbeinu said, okay, Beseder, I accept it. I accept that you're bringing all of these spoils as a kapara, and this is your tshuva. The question is, what's so bad about thinking about a sin? V'chi hem asu et hachet, lo asu et hachet. Ma kol kach baya? It's a good question. Ma kol kach baya lachshov al chet. Harei lo asu et hachet. After the story of Balak, that Balak hired Bilam to curse Am Yisrael, chas v'shalom, then the Moab, the kingdom of Moab, they brought out their daughters. Even the king brought out the princess in order to incite Am Yisrael, God forbid, and they actually did the great sins. Unfortunately, that was the whole story with Pinchas, where Zimri, even he was nechshal, gamhu nechshal. He also fell through in the sin. So when they came back, actually, yeah. Yeah. They knew that they knew that if they will get them to do an avera, then they will bring him down. I mean, so they couldn't bring him down through the curses, because the curses in Parashat Kitetze, the Torah says that when Kitetze l'milchama alevecha, when a person, when we'll go out for war on your enemies, the Torah tells us that in a time of war, it's possible and it's permitted. Obviously, it's not just war, but it's a mechemet mitzvah, a war of a mitzvah. That it's possible in certain scenarios, because Hashem understands the human being of how we're made up. However, that was definitely wrong to do in that time. There wasn't a time of war, and it was before that mitzvah as well. And so, מה שאנחנו רוצים להבין, מה כל כך גרוע לחשוב על חטא? הרי הוא לא עשה את החטא. What is so bad about thinking about a sin? There's a joke about doing chesed. You want to do chesed, so you want to bring a cup of coffee to your friend. You think about it 100 times. You didn't do the chesed. If you want to do chesed, not enough to think about it. You have to do it. If you didn't do it, then it's not the chesed. So by an avera, by a sin, God forbid, chas shalom, what's so bad if you just think about it? Choshvim al chet chas shalom la'asot. Ma kol kach garua. The bottom line is, either a person did it or did not do it. יש כמה הסברים לכל הרעיון למה מחשבה כל כך גרוע. We have a few explanations why it's so bad to think about a sin. The אור החיים הקדוש מסביר שלא רק שהיצר לא מגיע לסיפוקו, אלא הוא מוסיף תאווה על תאוותו. שזה דבר שממשיך. That when a person thinks about an avera, not only did his inclination not fulfill his temptation, but also, moreover, he continues to think about it. It's an ongoing process. הרמב"ם מסביר משהו מאוד יפה, שבחסידות מוסבר יותר בעומק. בתניא, האדמו"ר הזקן מסביר, כשמישהו עושה עבירה, יש מחשבה, דיבור ומעשה. We have thought, speech, and action. אז כשמישהו עושה מעשה רע, המעשה פוגע רק בכוח המעשה, משהו מאוד חיצוני. אבל כשמישהו מדבר על עבירה, או מישהו חושב על עבירה, המחשבה כל הזמן חושבת, כל הזמן פועלת. אז הפוגע הרבה יותר עמוק. למשל, יש דוגמה לזה, בהמה שמקבלת מום. מום חיצוני זה מום לא כל כך עוצמתי. מום פנימי, אפילו מום קטן. מחשבה זה דבר מאוד עמוק, זה כמו הנפש. Why is it that when a person thinks about a sin, then that can have a very deep negative impact on the person? בדיוק, מקום משכן הנשמה זה במוח שבראש. יפה מאוד. Sorry?
Success?
Okay, so one can say, if you can't speak Lashon Hara, or a person, any Aveira, God forbid, so if you did it, you did it. You have to do tshuva. But if you didn't do it, who cares if you thought about it? Or let's say in this case, about immoral relationships. A person, chas v'shalom, does it physically, then that's a terrible thing. But if a person didn't do it and just thought about it, or maybe saw a certain movie or a certain picture on the WhatsApp or a certain thing, if chas v'shalom there's no sinun, if chas v'shalom there's no filter on the computer, then a person can see terrible things. What happens? A person tries to convince himself, I didn't do the sin, I just saw it, chas v'shalom. It's not that bad. Hakol b'seder. The answer is no. It's not only lo beseder. In a sense, it's even worse than doing the Avera itself. How could that be? How could that be? It's a very powerful thing.
Yeah,
how could that be? So here's the explanation. What I'm going to say now is not in any way undermining the Avera kipshuto, the sin, the literal sin. What I'm going to say now, obviously, doing the sin itself is terrible. But I'm just trying to emphasize now, trying to explain a little bit for a couple of moments, how the terrible impact that can happen if a person only thinks about the sin. If a person does the sin, so we have a koach hamaaseh, the ability to do something physically. You give tzedakah. I'm talking about the positive. You do a mitzvah, you put on the tefillin, light Shabbat candles. You're doing something positive. So when you do it, it's wonderful. It's amazing. You did the mitzvah. But this maaseh is only mityaches. It's only related to your external part of yourself. The internal is your neshama, your nefesh, your machshava. When a person thinks, ha-machshava mishotetet tamid. There's never a moment that you stop thinking. Even when you're walking, you're dreaming, or you're taking a suntan, you think you're just looking at the skies. You are thinking. Every moment. Gam balayla, yafeh. It's a musag shel chalamot. We're always thinking. Maaseh, sometimes we're doing something. Sometimes we're not doing something. Sometimes we're just dreaming, just relaxing. So also dibur, also speech. Sometimes I'm speaking, and sometimes I'm not speaking. Some people speak more, some people speak less, some people speak to themselves. There are different levels of speaking. But everybody, sometimes we speak more or less, but it's not all the time. We're not always speaking. Machshava is always running. We don't realize Hashem gives us the koach of machshava. That's more than we have by animals and more by. It's always happening, always running, never stops. Yafeh. That's amazing. We're going to get that in a second. What you just said now is the point that I'm trying to bring out. Thinking, we're going to talk about this. Thinking is not just thinking, it's just thinking. Thinking is energy. The koach, the avira. כשחושבים משהו, זה לא רק מחשבה. זה מחשבה, wow. Here's another point that we're trying to bring out now. The nefesh, your soul, your spirit, is always running. It's always active. It's giving you life. Mechayet ben adam. You're always involved. You're always kol hazman. Nefesh chai. Ulo lokech is a chofesh lekama shaot or lekama yamim. The nefesh never takes a vacation, vacances. Nachon, we. And never the nefesh never takes a vacation because hanefesh is davar chai. זה דבר חי, גם המחשבה. הנפש, כמו שאמרת, הנשמה, מקום משכן הנשמה זה בראש. The neshama finds itself mainly in our head. So the mind is always thinking. We're always, כל הזמן, אנחנו מפתחים, it's always moving. So if a person does a good thing, it's wonderful. The maaseh with your hands. It's wonderful. You've done a good thing. But if you thought a good thing, it's much more important, not important. So it's important to do maaseh also. I'm just trying to bring out the importance of the thought that when you're thinking, the impact of your good thought is much stronger, it's much deeper. You've not only done something externally, you've also done something you've changed your being. I'll give you an example. An example is when you bring an animal to the Beit HaMikdash to bring a korban, it has to be complete. And there are different halachot, different details on what kind of blemish. Is it a blemish which disqualifies the animal from having a korban, or little scratch or something? By the way, soon we're going to mark the destruction of Korban Beit HaMikdash. And so Bar Kamsa, when he was thrown out of the what did Bar Kamsa say? Bar Kamsa, Umar la Kesar, he said to the Caesar, he said he wanted to prove that the Jewish people don't bring the korban of Gentiles. So he said, we're gonna make. He said, you're gonna see that Am Yisrael, they're not send with me a korban, an animal, and you'll see they're not gonna bring it. He said, impossible. I can't imagine that they're not gonna take it just because it's from me. So he said the thing, and on the way he made a blemish. He did it on purpose, but it was such a blemish that for the Gentiles it's not really called a blemish, but in the Torah it is called a blemish. For the Gentiles, you wouldn't consider it incomplete. Still, it had a little scratch. I don't know exactly what it was. And so this is the point. So what happened? The Tzemach says this. Now I'm going back to our case. Now, if we try to see a blemish which is external, so there are some things, a mum, which are not a big deal, and some things which are, if there is a mum, chas v'shalom, an animal in the internal organs, then even a small, tiny thing can disqualify the animal. Even a tiny blemish. What do we see? That if there is the impact on, אז מה אנחנו רואים מפה? שפגם באיבר פנימי הרבה יותר עוצמתי מפגם חיצוני. A blemish in the inside organs and the inner organs is much stronger, is much deeper, serious than a blemish in only the external. So if someone chas v'shalom did an avera with his physically, it's terrible. I'm not chas v'shalom giving any kind of approval, but I'm not undermining it all in the seriousness of that. But it's bad. But it's only chitzoni. It's only external. But if a person chas v'shalom thought about an avera, hurak חשב על עבירה, אפילו שלא עשה את עבירה בפועל, אז הוא פגם באופן מאוד מאוד עמוק בנפש. He made a blemish, basically, very deeply in his soul. And it says in the Talmud, in the tractate of Yuma, which talks about the Yom Kippur, Hirhure Avera, Kashim Me Avera. Thinking about a sin is even more severe than actually doing the sin. So obvious. That's an excellent question. Here, the question that was just asked is that how can we control our sin? You're walking, you're doing, you're going. It seems to be that our thought is uncontrollable. We can't control our thoughts. It's a good question. The answer to your question is a very simple answer. Just learn the Tanya. Just learn the Tanya. Till Mediyat Sefer Tanya, and everything will fit in. It's not a big deal. Just Akol Beseder. Till Mediyat Tanya Benatanya Rechavia. Chas v'shalom. That's why I said it 5 times. I said I'm not in any way legitimizing the Avera itself. I'm just trying to explain that the impact of the thinking about the Avera is even more severe. That's all I'm saying. The Talmud says, Hirhure Avera, Kashim Me Avera Atzma. Just thinking about the sin is even more impactful, is more difficult. I understand. That's what we're trying to do. So if I had to say, I'm going to explain what
כשאדם מערער, הוא יכול לשנות את המחשבה שלו.
יפה.
זאת עובדה, מוגמרת.
אז אני רוצה כי זה פוגע במחשבה, המחשבה זה בראש, וזה קשור לנפש. ברגע שמישהו פוגם בנפש בעצמו, לא רק בתוצאה של הנפש. בעצמה, אז ברגע שפוגעים, אז זה הרבה יותר קשה לתקן, הרבה יותר קשה לטהר נפש כל כך טהור, כל כך, איך אני אגיד, אני חסר לי קצת תעזרו לי בבקשה, לזכך משהו כל כך פנימי ועמוק. אם רוצים לזכך משהו חיצוני, הרבה יותר קל, זה טכני, עושים שפשוף, הכל בסדר, הכל טוב, עושים קצת צבע, עושים קוסמטי, והכל טוב ויפה. אבל לתקן את הנפש, וואו, זה הרבה יותר עמוק, זה הרבה יותר קשה. לכן חשוב מאוד שאנחנו נשמור על האותנטיות ועל הטהרה ועל היופי של הנשמה בעצמה. If I was to say the Tanya in 4 words, the whole Tanya in 4 words, it's going to be the answer to your question. אני יכול להגיד כל התניה, סיכום. סיכום, summary of the entire Tanya. מוח, שליט, al halev. The mind controlling over the heart. In 30 seconds, what does that mean? Hashem gives a human being, especially a Jew, יש לנו את הכוח ואת היכולת לשלוט על הרצונות, יפה, על הרצונות שלנו, על המחשבות שלנו, ולהיות כמו שצריך. Hashem gives us the power, mind power. That's the whole point of this share today. Mind power to control how we think, how we feel. Now, most people will say, what do you mean? I'm thinking, how can I control? So it's easy to control, It's more simple to control an act. Someone is doing an Avera and they stop. So stop doing an Avera. Or speaking Lashon Hara and they stop. That's it. Stop. So there's no more Lashon Hara. Just 1 second, please. I want to finish this thought. Then, Moach Shalit Al Alev, let's say you're thinking, and have a bad thought that comes to mind just out of the blue. Either you saw someone walking in the street that's not dressed properly, or saw someone, or someone saw Chas Shalom a bad movie or a picture in the technology, and you right away Change your machshava. So you can't stop machshava. Before we said machshava meshotetet tamid. Machshava is always moving. What can you do? You can change it for another machshava. You can change one thought with another thought. So right away, start. That's one of the reasons why it's good to learn Torah by heart. Mishnayot, Tehillim, Tanya, Lilmod Baal Peh. Lama? כשיש לנו תורה בראש, ברגע שחס ושלום יש לנו מחשבה לא טובה, מה שצריך לעשות זה רק להחליף אותו במחשבה אחרת. It sounds easy. It's very, very hard. But the more we learn about this idea, the more we train ourselves, the more we learn about the מאוד קל לדבר על זה, רק צריך להחליף מחשבה. זה קל לדבר, אבל מאוד קשה לבצע, אבל זה אפשרי, זה בהחלט אפשרי. הקדוש ברוך הוא ברא אותנו שמוח שליט על הלב. In our day and age, we're used to being explained, being showered by the media and by the secular, that this is how we are, nothing to change, nothing to do about it. This is how we are. So we just continue to enjoy life. But it's not so. We're here to work. Every minute, kol rega, every moment we're here to make an effort. Even in the machshava, even in how we think. That's also part of our avodat Hashem, to think only good things, to think words of Torah. If you don't remember the text of the Mishnah, to think about the concept of the Mishnah. When you leave the shir, think about it. Not only that it will help you remember, but it will be ingrained deep inside of you. Just like when a person thinks something bad is a pogem, that can, chas v'shalom, it can have a bad impact on a person's nefesh. How much more so the midat tova meruba al midat haporanut? In the good sense, it's even much stronger than the negative sense. That when we think good things and when we watch good videos, shiurei Torah, you have on YouTube, you have many videos of the Rebbe. I once met a person here down the block. A young guy is a Chassid Gur. He tells me, if I didn't have the videos of the Rebbe, I would never believe that it's true. All these things that they say about it. He sits in hours and hours, not Chabad, Ger Chassid, but he loves watching the videos, whether it's giving out dollars and seeing the Rebbe's insight. Just this week, somebody sent out a thing in the WhatsApp. A guy asked the Rebbe, you can see the picture of the guy asking the Rebbe. He says, I'm $70,000 in debt. What do I do? The Rebbe says, and that's making you depressed? Only $70,000? Hashem has much more than that. So looking at it from a positive perspective and thinking good, that already puts you in a situation that you can hopefully have the Yeshua. Yes. So you're talking about the practical. We're talking about a person. You're correct. We're not talking about now a new law that if someone just thinks to steal, we'll put him in jail. You're right. We're not changing. We're not adding on to the laws. We're talking about a personal introspection, that how a person can deal with their own and become a better person. So the point is, actually, this point is very important what you're saying, because we're coming soon to the month of Elul, and then Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Odmat. So we're talking about not just Hashem, I'm sorry, Hashem, Kadosh Baruch Hu, for doing something. Some of the Al-Chet, by the way, is about how we act and what kind of person we are. And that's also part of becoming better people, in a sense, even more than the actual Avera that we could have done, and we just thought we're going to do it, and at the end we don't do it. So it's you're right. We're talking about inward towards the person. Yes.
For mitzvah, it's the opposite.
The what?
For mitzvah, it's the opposite.
So you're saying a good point.
You can't think a mitzvah, you have to do a mitzvah.
Okay, so it's a great point. It's amazing that you've heard a lot of the teachings in the Chabad Chassidus, and Chabad Chassidus puts a great focus on action. On action. However, what we're bringing out is not only in the mitzvah in the sense of 613 mitzvot. We're talking mainly about good energy, good ideas, good feelings that you think about and you develop and you bring home. That can bring a person. It can elevate up the inside of a person. In other words, you can have a person that's perfect. right in the beginning of the Tanya. He does everything, 613 mitzvot. He never did a sin, only mitzvot. But what does the Tanya discuss? 1 second. Are you a Beinani or not? In the first page of the Tanya, the Alter Rebbe discusses Rabbah. Rabbah from the greatest teachers of the Talmud. And he said, for example, I'm a Beinani. I'm an intermediate person. So any regular person would say, Rabbah? From the greatest people in our history was a Beinani. He was for sure a tzaddik. What was going through his mind? And he was not like a fake, humble person. Oh, I'm only a Beinani. That's not really humility. Anav doesn't deny the truth. Anav is a real person. He knew he's a tzaddik. So why did he say Kigon Anav Beinani? For example, I'm a Beinani. Because where can a person perhaps go wrong? Beyond action. You're right. Action is very important, and in a sense, it's the most important. The truth is that usually we have to explain how important the action is, because Dibur and Machshava is very important. How important action is. Now that we've discussed for 12 years, Baruch Hashem, how important action is, now we're giving a little bit of an insight in how important Machshava, how important thought is. And so when we talk about doing a mitzvah, the most important thing is the action. But we want to, why did Rabbah, how could he have mistaken to be a Beinani and not a tzaddik? Because it's possible that a person should be perfect in maaseh, in action and deeds, perfect. 613 mitzvot, not miss anything. But maybe in his soul, in his machshava, maybe he's thinking about chas v'shalom to do one thing or another. And you look at it from the outside, it looks like a big tzaddik. But what happens in the inside? A big tzaddik is good. Don't get me wrong. It's good. It's important to be perfect. We have two translations, interpretations in the word tzaddik. Tzaddik could be halachically, and tzaddik could be in the nefesh, in the soul. Halachically, halachically, you could be a perfect tzaddik, shaliyot mamash tzaddik amor. But in the nefesh, could be a person is a Beinani or less. Rechavia tovlo, according to the Tanya, is a pretty high level. A Beinani is like, wow. A Beinani is a person who is perfect in his machshava as well. So it's hard. It's very hard. I'm not trying to give us a feeling, oh boy, we're never going to get there. There's a good phrase in Yiddish, in Hebrew. Halavai Beinani. One of the greatest, Rabbi Hillel Parich. What could we do if we have chas v'shalom, a bad thought? All you have to do is to change gears. Pashut lachlif machshava acheret. Kechol sheyesh lanu ma'agar yoter tov shel machshavot tovot, ze yachol lachlif midavar machshava lo tova lemachshava tova. The more good things we have in mind, we can switch, and we can have in our machsan, in our storage, in our storage in our mind. We should have good things, so we can always switch it for a negative thought for a positive thought. And when you're talking about deed, אני חושב שזה לוקח הרבה כוחות נפש. אני לא רוצה לזלזל בפשטות העניין. זה בהחלט דבר שדורש הרבה מאמץ, הרבה השקעה, בדיוק תעצומות נפש. באמת, זה לא פשוט. חס ושלום. ומחשבות טובות מביא לשמחה. זה יפה, זה שאלה טובה. אין לי את הסוויץ', הכפתור, שעושים, לוחצים ובום, הכל בסדר. I don't have the magical switch that we can help change from one thought, from a bad thought to a good thought. But what I could say is, it's work. It's a lot of work. Yafeh. So it's a process. It's an investment. It doesn't happen in 1 second. We do exercise. So you could do the best exercises, but it's not gonna help as well as if you keep on doing it and you do it every day and sometimes a couple of times a day. Then that gets the muscles into the habit of doing whatever they're supposed to do to keep a person healthy. And so all I could say is like this: ככל שנלמד יותר חסידות, יותר תניא, ויותר נכניס לעצמנו, איך נגיד את זה? נשכנע את עצמנו שזה נכון, זה ייתן לנו את הכוחות ואת הטיפים ואת תעצומות נפש לעמוד בזה. The more we will learn Torah, the more we will learn Chassidut, and learn about these ideas of how to strengthen our machshava, how to strengthen, to uplift our nefesh, our soul, to strengthen the pnimiyut, which that's really what counts. The maaseh also counts, of course. The maaseh is wonderful. The deed is important, and in a sense, the deed is the most important. But right now, we're putting a focus on how important it is, how important the nefesh is. And the kachol shenashkia yoter banefesh, the more we will invest in our pnimiyut, in our innermost energy and innermost talents, and that Hashem has given us, that will give to work on ourselves and to uplift ourselves and to Bezrat Hashem to be on a higher level. And so now, as we get back to the parsha, עכשיו נסכם את הנושא. אנחנו מדברים על עם ישראל שחזרו מהמלחמה עם מדיין ואמרו, לא חטאנו, אבל רק חשבנו על החטא, ולכן אנחנו צריכים כפרה. וזה העניין, שאנחנו צריכים לשמור מאוד על הרוח ועל הנפש בעצמנו, ולשים כמובן סינון כמו שצריך על הפלאפון ועל המחשב, שחס ושלום בטעות, כמובן לא בכוונה, בטעות חס ושלום, שלא יהיה, שלא ניכשל חס ושלום. כל יום אנחנו מתפללים להשם על הבוקר, שלא ניכשל ולעולם ועד, ולא נבוש ולא נקלם. אז אם זה התפילה שלנו, אז אנחנו צריכים לעשות מאמצים באמת לעמוד בזה. When we talk about, just to summarize, talk about Am Yisrael coming back from the war. And those that came back from the war, they declared they did not do the sin. They only thought about doing a sin. Nevertheless, they needed to have a kapara, because we have to do our best to uplift ourselves, that we should not, chas v'shalom, get pulled down spiritually by different thoughts. Therefore, it's very important to have a proper filter. Different companies that there are on our phones, on our internet. So this way, and even walking in the street, be very careful where we look. And if chas v'shalom by mistake we saw something which we should not be looking at, right away to turn our heads, right away to, we're looking around. Hashem made us. That's how we're looking around. But what is up to us? It's not up to us if we're looking around. But the moment that we see something which is inappropriate, we have to look away, because that is in our control. Hashem expects of us to control ourselves in what we were able to, and that's what He expects of us. And that's our kli. Sometimes it's not easy, but we have to do our best. We have to work at it. We have to strive very hard at this idea, and especially in the summertime when these things are more available to us. And especially, we started talking about the Beit HaMikdash, that we want to build the Beit HaMikdash. We want to bring more Kedusha. The mitzvah is, V'asu Mikdash v'shachanti b'tocham. The Beit HaMikdash is in our heart. In the Tanya also, chapter 51, the Alter Rebbe says the Beit HaMikdash is in our mind. Our mind is a little Beit HaMikdash. It's a temple. It's a dwelling place for Hashem. If there's one place in our whole body, Hashem dwells. Wherever the neshama is, Hashem dwells even more. So we want to build the Beit HaMikdash, nachon? We're trying to build the Beit HaMikdash. We want to focus on the rebuilding, not chasam on the destruction. So we have to focus on building and rebuilding our own neshama, our own mind, our own control over what we do. And when we do that, that changes over, instead of the destruction, then we bring about the building. Yasher koach, toda rabba lachem. I'm still here, so we'll take some more questions. But big yasher koach, toda rabba l'Sharon, toda rabba. Shirak b'serot tovot ובמשפחה ובעם ישראל, ורק בשורות טובות, כל טוב. And of course, a big thank you to Mordechai and Raya for hosting and broadcasting this year.